Hello, everyone. It's Andy from WrestleSphere. I've just had the honor and the privilege of speaking to the one and only Sami Callihan from Impact Wrestling. He even managed to drag me a little bit on my introduction. It wasn't grand enough. It wasn't verbose enough. So anyway, it was a great interview, if I do say so myself. I'm really excited for you guys to see it. We go into a little bit about instant gratification within wrestling. So a little bit of a heavy subject for you, but one that Sami seems to take great relish in explaining the challenges that brings to wrestlers, and even some of the positives as well. We go into a little bit about the hot topic that is international events for wrestling promotions at the moment, a little bit about Wrestling Revolver, and even managed to have a little bit of a microphone malfunction right at the end when discussing Howard the Duck. So without further ado, here is an interview with Sami Callihan of Impact Wrestling. Enjoy. I'm joined by Sami Callihan from Impact Wrestling. And how are you doing, Sami?
That was a terrible introduction. You got to do that again. You got to put a little bass behind your voice. You got to get the Death Machine, the Draw, Sami Callihan. See, I did your job for you. I'm going to give myself a nice little golf clap so we don't have to go over this again. I'm just saying,
a golf clap.
Piss poor introduction. Piss poor.
Well, hopefully the questions will be a little bit better than the introduction. But
look at this production value. I got a background going. I got a microphone. I got the headset on. Technological. I am technological today.
Amazing. But I'd expect nothing less from someone who's had a lot of their career linked to technology and hacking and things like that. So
you know me.
So I'm going to jump straight in. And I've been listening to a lot of your previous interviews and watching your career. And one thing that really stands out to me is how much of a huge proponent you are for telling stories within wrestling. And rather than ask you the same question that everyone will probably always ask you, what's your favorite match? I'm really interested to know, where does that love from stories come from? What's your favorite story? Is there a particular one that kickstarted that?
As far as me, or just as far as professional wrestling in general?
Either. You like what was the story that kind of made you go down that mindset, and then how did that leak through into wrestling? Is there a particular wrestling story that kind of fed into that as well?
Well, as a kid, everyone else was like, oh, I like this guy because he's a good wrestler, or I like this guy because he has cool moves. I was always a big fan of guys that had intricate stories behind them. A guy like The Undertaker. Like, you look at The Undertaker's entire career, 90% of what he did was all story-based and story-driven. And you look at some of the top moments in professional wrestling, it wasn't always about the match quality. It was like everything else. Professional wrestling is one of the one things in the entire world that we can be action, we can be melodrama, we can be pretty much any form of entertainment all wrapped up into one ball. And that's what made me love professional wrestling. And then me being a professional wrestler now for almost 20 years, that's what I've clinged on to professional wrestling. Like, even if you look at my stories in Impact Wrestling, one of my favorite stories we ever told was OVE versus the Lucha Brothers turning into me versus Pentagon, hair versus mask. That is a story that we actually did on the indies between me and Pentagon that led to pretty much the same exact match that we're able to bring over to Impact and like tell a story in even more intricate details. If you look at some of the backstage vignettes, you look at some of the cinematic shit we shot for that show, I think that story, like bar none, just in Impact Wrestling history, is one of the best that I've ever told, and also one of the best that Impact's ever told. Then you look at something like me and Eddie Edwards. Me and Eddie Edwards is a story that, like Marvel, it's a story that will never be done. We could be together until the last step in our wrestling career. And I don't think people would get that tired of it because we're able to latch on to different stories. We've done the stuff with Alicia Edwards. We've done the stuff where we can be friends and like respect each other for the fighting spirit, so to speak. And I think that aspect of professional wrestling, specifically on the indies more than ever, I think is a lost art.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the interviews in particular that stood out to me was one he did recently with Fightful, and he spoke about this sort of generation of instant gratification and how that kind of affects, I guess, seeped into wrestling. How hard is it to combat that now? Because obviously you've just sold a few there examples of big storylines that have kind of flowed throughout, and it's been throughout your entire career. How difficult is it to kind of combat that instant gratification TikTok generation that's going on at the moment?
We are in that generation right now, and it kind of bugs me. It's one of the best things for professional wrestling, and it's also one of the worst. We have people that aren't behind a TV product, don't have a TV machine behind them that's becoming big stars. But at the same point, I think it's extremely detrimental to the growth of some of these young professional wrestlers because they might be a year or two in, like they're still learning, they're still cutting their teeth, they're still becoming who they are. And they'll have one clip that goes viral. It's like, oh, I got 1 million views of me doing this cool move. And then they feel like they don't have to learn anymore. They feel like they don't have to advance. They feel like they can live off that one moment. But to put it into perspective, I put all my students at Pile Driver Wrestling Academy in Ohio. I'm like, look, it's cool to have something go viral. That's a cool little thing on your resume. That's added visualization of what your body of work is. But at the end of the day, videos of cats get millions of views on Twitter. Like I could put up a video of my cute, adorable kitten right now, and it'd probably pop off and get 1 million views. And then the next day, no one remembers it. The difference between getting that instant gratification and being like, oh, I had a clip go viral and being truly over and having longevity in your career is like taking one of those moments and continue to build off them. You can't live on one moment because I've seen so many wrestlers in the past couple of years live off that one moment, try to recreate that one moment, get bookings because, oh, I'm the guy that does this moment or I'm the girl that does this moment. And then they go nowhere because they never evolved past that moment. And that's one of the biggest problems right now.
Do you think within that then, is there any examples where if someone was kind of just looking for that very quick hit on Sami Callihan, what's the one kind of clip that you think would sell who you are as a person? If
me hitting Eddie Edwards in the face with a baseball bat. That clip went on TMZ. That clip went all over the world. It has millions upon millions of views. I'm pretty sure it got aired on ESPN and every other market at the time. But that's something like I didn't just live on that one moment. Sure, I added a baseball bat into my repertoire and it's a fun little nod to that moment, but I don't think that's the only moment people remember Sami Callihan. I took that one moment and I continued to build my body of work and continued to use that notoriety, use that instant form of gratification to get myself to the next level and continue growing myself from that aspect.
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the kind of the standout examples where you saw social media really come into play, going like, oh, this, all the negative voices came out and this guy's unsafe, blah, 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 and whatever. But even more so nowadays, that social media voice seems to kind of like really jump up, and they kind of like talk about buy rates and things like that fans really should never really get involved in.
It boggles my mind. Like, It's not just professional wrestling, it's movies, it's all forms of entertainment. Oh, this had this much views, or I'm not going to like this because these people didn't watch it and these people didn't like it. I watch movies all the time that people don't like and I absolutely love because I don't let other people's opinion on things like convolute my opinion on something. It's the same thing with wrestling. And that's another thing I think with young wrestlers. They might have a match and then they go instantly on Twitter and they'll have hundreds of tweets and be like, oh, that was great. That was great. That was great. That was great. But then they take that one tweet that was like, oh, I didn't like that match. That was terrible. And they let that harp their entire observation of what their match is. Like, no one's going to tell me whether my art's good or bad. I'm going to tell myself whether I like something or I don't. There's stuff that people like that I didn't like, but I'm going to have my own opinion and there's not going to be anyone that's going to jade me from that. That's the art form of professional wrestling. That's the art form of entertainment in general. You can't allow every single voice to contradict what you feel about yourself and what you feel about your art.
And is that something you have to teach the students at the academy? Do you have to actually broach that subject, or is it just something that let them deal with it on their own? Or you've
100%. That's something I cover all the time. Like, first of all, I can go on both ends of the spectrum. A wrestler is going to be, oh, like these people followed me and they liked my match. And I said, don't let that go to your head. That means nothing. That's one small thing. Like, that's not your entire career. Like, or they'll harp on the other side. Like, oh, this person said they didn't like their match. And I'm like, well, did you like your match? Yes. Did the crowd react to your match? Yes. Then why do you care what someone else says? Like, don't let other people's opinions jade your own perception of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you said one of the best lines I've heard, from a quote is the lions don't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. Like, and
100%. And like, that's so cliche to say, but it rings true. It really does. And I always try to put it into my wrestler's perspective. And it's not just in the world of professional wrestling. People allow social media to really put in their head the ideals of what should be good or what should be bad at the time. But in the grand scheme of things, social media isn't everything. Maybe 20% of the world actually has Twitter. Or even if you look at a television program, a wrestling program might have 2 million viewers. It was only mentioned on Twitter 22,000 times. So you're saying only 22,000 people mentioned Raw or mentioned WWE or mentioned AEW or mentioned Impact Wrestling or mentioned Ring of Honor. Only that many people mention it. That puts things into the grand scheme that like our business is way bigger than just social media. Sure, social media is a great tool. Sure, social media is great to help build your brand, but at the same point, like it's not everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing I have noticed though is on a positive note is maybe the negativity is kind of is more prevalent on AEW and WWE side of things, but I love seeing the Impact fans on social media because they seem to be the most positive and the most appreciative of the product itself.
They're accepting. They're okay watching the product and just absolutely be like, "Oh, that was great," and like speaking about what they love instead of what they dislike. Like in the world in general, I keep saying that term in the world, but it speaks true right now. We allow ourselves to be too negative. Like, why do we talk about what we dislike? And why don't we just love what we love and allow people to love what they love and dislike what they dislike? The negativity is ridiculous. I could not imagine going online and talking about a movie like, oh, this movie would have been better if this director would have taken this choice. Are you making the movie? You're not making the movie. Like, just enjoy it. And if you don't like, but it so much more is the negative outlined way harder than the positive of what a movie is.
Where do you think that acceptance comes from within the Impact community? Like in particular,
I think we do have a huge cult following. We've had great times, we've had bad times, and now we're back at great times again. I think it really speaks to our fan base. It speaks to our roster in general that like we believe in this product. We believe in Impact Wrestling and the people that are slowly and surely just building momentum on top of professional wrestling. They see exactly what we're doing. And I think on a weekly basis, like we have the best weekly episodic television show in wrestling right now, and that's any company, and that's not harping or disliking any other company. Professional wrestling is great right now. You can watch professional wrestling every day of the week. As a kid, that was my dream. Like right now we have that, and like Impact Wrestling, like we can be different. We can do different kinds of stories. We can have different kinds of roster. We can give wrestlers that may not have a great opportunity somewhere else a great opportunity at Impact Wrestling to show the world what they can do. You look at a guy like Steve Macklin. I cannot sing his praises enough. He is the Impact Wrestling world champion right now. He's a guy like myself. Things didn't work out somewhere else because someone did not understand what he is or what they had with him. And coming to Impact Wrestling, he has shown the entire world like how good he really is. And like, in my opinion, I think he's one of the best wrestlers going around right now. The dude hits it out of the park every time. He doesn't have an off night. Like Steve Macklin as the face of Impact Wrestling right now is something I can 100% always agree on and like really agree with.
And just on the kind of like note about Impact fans, it was announced a couple of days ago that that the company's going to be traveling across to Australia. How excited are you to
Australia? It's amazing because with COVID, it really put a damper on some of the things Impact Wrestling was doing. We were starting to go to the UK more. We were starting to travel more. And then when COVID hit, it kind of like put everyone back in the dark ages. We were just filming at a studio every darn week. And it was one of those things that like, sure, our television show was good, but like the fans are everything in professional wrestling. Having that atmosphere and like having it really seep over to the television and you can feel that, like feeling in wrestling is like the biggest thing. And now we're selling it. Like, I think I looked at a statistic. Our last, I think it's 5 or 6 specials on Impact Plus and pay-per-views have all sold out for Impact Wrestling. And to see where Impact Wrestling was when I first came in to now with the new regime, seeing what they built Impact Wrestling in just in the last 5 years is absolutely astronomical.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned there, you guys in Impact were doing a lot of shows internationally, and it seems to be on topic at the moment. Obviously, you've got the big Wembley show coming up for AEW. There's an London show coming up for WWE. I just want to get your thoughts on that. What are your thoughts on the kind of like promotions within North America moving outside of North America and getting the reactions that they are? Is it surprising to you at all?
No, it's not surprising at all because America is a very oversaturated market with professional wrestling. We have some of the best wrestling in the world on every day of the week, like I said. And now getting a chance for like Impact to start traveling and going out, like that's great for the business. It's great for the fan base. Impact Wrestling is one of the most watched television shows in all of India right now. I don't think people understand how big of a following Impact Wrestling has outside of just the United States in general. Like Anthem has truly distributed us all over the world. And now getting a chance to, like, that fan base might even be bigger than our United States fan base, because the United States is one thing. The rest of the world is a whole other thing. And getting a chance to go out for those fans and show them what we do, like that's a great feeling. And it's awesome to be back to that point with Impact Wrestling.
And you touched on it a little bit there. Like, one of the things recently is obviously for Impact, you can now find them in the UK on DAZN. There's Impact Insiders on YouTube, Impact Plus. How important is it to kind of just spread yourself as far and wide and make it as easy as possible for people to find you?
I think right now Impact is one of the easiest companies to find. Like, not only do we have great international deals, we also have Impact Plus on YouTube. Like, me as a person, I don't watch cable television anymore. I don't have a satellite dish. Everything I watch is on YouTube or on a streaming service. And now with Impact Ultimate Insiders on YouTube, I think it's like $1.99 a month, and you can watch every episode live as it's airing on Access TV. Like, that's huge. Like, that's not a big jump in price. Like, that's $1.99. You don't only get every show, you get all the specials, as well as you get a bunch of exclusive content. We got Joe Hendry doing Food Fight. We have Taylor Wilde doing her interview show. You got me doing Callihan Uncensored. You have Josh Alexander doing Retro Recap. Like, Impact Wrestling just isn't trying to put out matches. We're trying to put out just amazing content with the professional wrestlers that we have, because the professional wrestlers we have are more than just wrestlers. We're entertainers. We're entertainers. We're people that can do more things. And I think Impact Wrestling is showing that.
And speaking of professional wrestlers that you do have, big news, obviously, in the last couple of weeks was the Knockouts division gaining one more member in Trinity. I'd love to hear your thoughts on her kind of joining that.
That's amazing. She's always been great. Like, having her part of the roster, that just adds to our already stacked roster. I think people now more than ever are really like looking at like, yo, Impact Wrestling has the best women's division in all professional wrestling division. Our Knockouts division, I would put head to head with any women's division all over the world. And like, adding Trinity to that's just another big piece of the puzzle. But before Trinity even got there, we have people like Jordan Grace, we have Jessica, we have Deonna Purrazzo, who, in my opinion, male or female, I think is one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. She's another person that don't miss. Like, our roster is amazing right now. And like, now getting another piece of that puzzle, if I was a female or a knockout wrestler, I would want to wrestle for Impact Wrestling right now, because I think our division gets more time than anywhere else. I think our division is main eventing pay-per-views every other month. Like, right now, like, and heck, it's not even just right now. Like, you want to talk about the women's revolution. I think Impact Wrestling TNA started that back in the day with the Gail Kims, the Awesome Kongs, the Beautiful Peoples. Like, Impact Wrestling has always put that above and beyond. And I think it's one of those things that shows more than ever with Impact Wrestling. It doesn't matter what sex you are, it doesn't matter what your religion is, it doesn't matter what you believe in. If you're good, the cream will rise to the top. And Impact Wrestling is the land of ultimate opportunity. Like, if you are a good professional wrestler and you get over, no one's going to hold you down. And that is a great feeling and a great weight lifted off your back as a performer, as an entertainer, as a professional wrestler.
While you're on, I think it would be remiss of me not to ask you about the work that's going on Wrestling Revolver. You got a Ring of Destiny event next month, and one of the matches I was really kind of looking forward to seeing is Roderick Strong versus Mike Bailey as well. Just want to ask you, how much do you enjoy being able to switch from being a talent with Impact to an owner, promoter, booker on Revolver?
I love running a wrestling show almost just as much as I like being a professional wrestler. It's a different form of gratification. Being in the ring, getting those cheers, that's great. But also putting something together or having a story or like every little piece clicking together for someone. You see a young talent go out there and it finally clicks for them. Like, that is a great feeling. With Wrestling Revolver, not only do we have some of the best wrestlers on the planet, we have Impact Wrestling, who's been a very amazing to us, a very integral part of us growing our product, helping us out with amazing talent. We also have, like, we're one of the only indie companies you see talent from Impact Wrestling, AEW, Ring of Honor, pretty much New Japan, like, in one place under one roof, without any egos, without any politics, with just everyone going out there and believing in the product as much as I do and having the most awesome shows that we could ever put on. And like, right now, Wrestling Revolver, we are kicking into high gear. Steve Macklin, like, he's been our world champion since almost December. Ace and Bay, the Rascals, we have amazing tag division. Like, Wrestling Revolver is like my dream product and what I believe professional wrestling is. That's why the tagline is wrestling for our generation, by our generation. Having a guy from my past like Moxley be so involved in the company, like that's something no other company can say. And that's something our vision of professional wrestling and our generation's vision of professional wrestling, like it's where we can go with like no handcuffs, all bets are off, and do exactly what we think is going to work. And sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. But Wrestling Revolver wouldn't be around if it wasn't like a company for Impact Wrestling. Like you got to think, you see Impact Wrestling champions on our shows almost every show, and getting a chance to do dream matches that no other company can do. Like that's what makes it so good.
And just last question before we wrap up here, and it's a bit of a one that's off topic. You've got Howard the Duck tattoo, and I'm just wondering whether you've softened on your approach on the CGI version that was on Guardians 3
no,
just come out.
Haven't. I like it. I'm probably going to see it when they release it. No, you give me Howard the Duck in a suit. I almost spent $1,500 the other day buying a recreation of the Howard the Duck suit for my office. Lost the bet. It went for like $4,500. I couldn't justify paying that much for Howard the Duck. My wife would have killed me.
Sami, your volume's gone off.
You messed it up. I know you used your magical powers to turn my microphone off. No, I'm not a big fan of CGI. I'm a huge fan of practical effects. And that's not only just movies like that, it's horror movies as well. There's something that you get from practical effects that you'll never get with CGI, and it's that realism. As good as CGI gets, I will always be a fan of practical effects over it.
That's great. Thanks very much. Cheers, Sami.
Oh, thank you.